All right, welcome back, guys, to the Foundation Podcast. We're focusing on strong minds, strong bodies, and strong faith. Today, we got special guest AJ Ellison here. He embodies all three of those pillars, which is why I'm so drawn to you and why I wanted you to come on. He's an IFBB pro. He's an elite coach and a respected figure in the world of health and wellness. But beyond being a shredded athlete with championship title, he's a man of discipline, character, and deep faith. He's here not only to share his story, but also talk about his partnership with Prime Recovery and Wellness and how optimizing his health has been key to performance and longevity. AJ Ellison, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Matt, thanks for having me on, man. It also feels good to be home. You know my story. I've been stuck in Canada for the past 6 years. I wouldn't say stuck. I'm there. But hopefully that's not a long-term thing. Ultimately, I do want to get back stateside and, if I have it my way, come back to Kansas City.
Yeah.
But for now, Calgary, Alberta's home.
And that wasn't the plan. It wasn't 6 years. It was kind of COVID, right? Kind of dictated that a little bit.
Yeah, man. I didn't plan for that. I didn't plan for a pandemic, right? The goal was to when I got married in 2019, I believe it was 2018. The goal was to come back, be up there for a year, come back stateside. Because my wife was from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. She had two girls before me. And, they're in school. Her family's there. I just felt it was easier for me to uproot and go up there and get settled and then bring the family back to the States. Then the whole COVID and lockdown thing happened. And so we got stuck up there through the pandemic. And, we stayed. We actually sold our house, put it on the market for one day in 2022. And my mother called and said, hey, President just put in an order saying that you have to, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you have to be fully jabbed to the nines to get in. And so my kids could come in because they're under 18, but my wife couldn't. So we had to pull out and stay in Canada.
But you were allowed to because you were an American citizen.
Because
right?
I'm an American citizen. That's
okay.
right. Yeah. So I could travel back and forth, but my wife couldn't come into the country.
I hear you. Yeah. Let's keep talking about the journey here a little bit. Tell us how you went from being a collegiate athlete to then later on stepping on the IFBB stage. What was the journey like from that point to where you are now, I guess?
Man, yeah, to go from like a endurance athlete to, to a bodybuilder was a pretty crazy trip. Qualified for Olympic trials back in 2000, men's 800 meters. I was a 146 half miler. 46 second quarter miler, 4 flat miler.
What did you weigh at that time?
About $150.
Yeah.
At 5'11".
Yeah.
Right.
And what, you're like 220 now, 215?
Today I'm probably about 215-ish. Yeah, the heaviest I got was about 240 when I thought I was going to classic, but the birth of my kid, I thought I'd back down a little bit and then stay in men's physique. But yeah, the transition, man. I qualified for Olympic trials back in 2000. After that, I became anemic. I overtrained, became anemic, and when you're not racing, you're not making any money. It's not like the NBA or NFL when you're racing post-collegiately. You get an agent, but you have to win. You got to place top 3 to bring home money and put food on the table. So I decided to hang up the track spikes, work in corporate. Did that for 13 years, and I just felt like I was just killing my soul. It wasn't for me. Clock in, clock out, 9 to 5. And not have any kind of passion I was shooting for. And then I found BJJ in jiu-jitsu. Did that for almost a decade. Fell in love with that, with the jiu-jitsu, competing in that. And I think that's what I was missing, right, is that competitive aspect. And when I fell in love with that, I progressed, went to the Arnold's, won the welterweight Naga Nogi championships there, and then I crossed into MMA. And then I got injured. And that injury was the turning point of my whole entire life, right? Messed around and got a DUI after that injury.
So a tricep injury?
It was a tricep tear, yeah, okay. Nasty tricep tear. And I remember just going out and hanging out with my friends who didn't have anything going for themselves. I mean, they work, come home, but that's it. They didn't have a passion for anything. And drowning their sorrows on the weekend, that was their passion. And I got into that with them, going out to drink for happy hour on Wednesdays, going out every Friday and Saturday nights, couldn't waste those nights, Sunday fun day, and I just got in that rut when I tore my tricep, and so I messed around and got a DUI. I felt like an absolute loser for the longest time, man, and that L turned into a lesson because that was a turning point in my life, right? That's when I realized that I wanted to start living for myself again, set some new goals, found bodybuilding through my friend who was saying, hey, man, you should do some fitness modeling. My mate back in the UK does it. I'm like, fitness modeling, come on, man, right? All my friends are punching and kicking each other in the face, and you're talking about modeling my underwear. I couldn't fathom that. So anyway, so one day he planted the seed, and one day I went to, I was in a Starbucks or I think it was a Barnes and Nobles on the plaza, and I went in there, and as I was getting a coffee, I looked over and saw this Men's Health magazine, and it was some dude on there with some abs and with this caption, hey, how to get summer abs on page 58. So I picked it up and I was like, man, in my head, I'm thinking I could probably do this, right? So I took the magazine with me and I'm like, how am I going to start doing this fitness modeling? Started contacting photographers in Kansas City, contacted one guy I know, and he was like, I don't do that, but I know somebody who does, who's local. It was David Bickley, if you remember that.
Yeah,
name.
he's a photographer.
David Bickley. Yeah,
he did great work. I don't know if he's still.
I don't think he's doing that anymore. But at the time, like he was getting some stuff published, so I reached out, and then he set up a photo shoot. Right, he set up a photo shoot using a private gym, a studio gym. I went there, and as I was shooting, the owner was like, "Hey man, what show are you getting ready for?" I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm doing this photo shoot." He's like, "Yeah, are you competing?" I was like, "Nah, no clue what you're talking about." So he pointed at some pictures on the wall. And it was, at the time, it was WBFF photos, right? Mm-hmm. And at that time, WBFF they didn't have the muscle model category. They didn't even have the bodybuilding category, I don't think. Okay. They just had fitness models, male fitness models, that's it. And they had a different round. Like they had a fitness round, and then they had a theme wear round. And the theme wear round was like it's like costumes, right? Like an Indian, a police, a fireman. So I'm like, the photos look real suspect, man. They look like muscle-bound village people, right? Or like male strippers. So I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't think I can get down like that. I had an issue just getting into my underwear and posing in front of everybody. Like, then I looked at that category with the costumes. I was like, I can't get down with that. It's too much. He's like, well, don't worry, because they're going to get rid of this theme wear round next year. So try competing next year. They're going to bring in a muscle model category, bodybuilding. So they're going to like open it up, and they'll have, instead of the theme wear round, they'll have an evening wear round where you wear suits and stuff. I'm like, okay, that seems a little more realistic for me. So that was the seed that was planted, right? Because he was like, really, if you're trying to get into fitness modeling, you're in the middle of nowhere. This is Kansas City. Like, there's no fitness model. There's no agent. Like, you kind of have to create your own, right, your own path for this. And using bodybuilding and competing and doing these shows will just get you more exposure, right? So I'm like, I thought about it for a while. I'm like, okay, I'll commit to it. And then I committed to it. I prepped myself off of just eating chicken and green beans, 6 meals a day for 6 weeks straight. And at that time, I wasn't educated on carbs. That's supposed to be for energy. So I was doing this naively and having the energy to power through. I was doing track workouts. I was doing MMA workouts, right? And powering through and being so naive that I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to have energy because I wasn't eating carbs. But I got lean fast. I lost a lot of muscle. My face was sunken in, man, because I wasn't eating carbs. But I got ready for the show. I looked good, but I was too gone. I was too skinny. But I had no idea about contest prep. I showed up like a hot body contest, right? I went to Dick's Sporting Goods and went to the women's section and told this chick, hey, I'm doing this like this fitness contest or whatever. I need like these small little like booty shorts. And she looked at me like I was crazy. So I got these like baby booty shorts from like the women's section in Dick's Sporting Goods. Showed up with that in my hand, no cooler of food, no nothing. Right, and so I get there, and everybody's all like, they got their sweats on, they got their 6-pack coolers, they got I'm looking at the tanning line, I'm seeing black guys getting tan. I'm like, what's that all about? Like, I was so confused. I didn't know what was what, right? Because I didn't have a coach. Nobody warning me like, this is what you're supposed to do. Like, and I had no idea about peak week, nothing. So I got on there on the fitness model stage. I remember getting in the morning show, getting the top 10 call out, right? But something happened in the evening show. I didn't get a top 10 call out. So I was like butthurt about that. I was listening, man. So maybe I didn't hear my name, right? But I didn't get called out. So I didn't even make top 10 that first show. And I went home, of annoyed and pissed off that I wasn't prepared. Because when I got there, I realized when people started coming up out of their sweats, like, oh, these guys are for real, right? Like, I was good for like jumping on stage or like going to like a pool or whatever and being like the most shredded guy in my friends group. But to take it to that level, I just wasn't ready for that. I didn't know what I was getting into. So, but anyways, I won a consolation prize. I won another shoot with David Bickley for that show. And then the bitterness set in. So I wanted to compete again. So this time I went and studied, learned some stuff, and I ended up going to Toronto in Worlds.
But you got your pro card before that, right?
I did not. No. I did not. I did that one show in Kansas City. It was a big show. It was like 40-some-odd guys or whatever. I think I got like, I don't know, 11th or 12th or whatever it was. But it was a lot of dudes there. But I came back 3 months later. I went to Toronto and competed there because I didn't like how I felt leaving that show, right? But this time I did some research and I started studying, and I came back, and when I got to Worlds 3 months later, I took third. I took third at Worlds in the muscle model category. And then so after that, that's all she wrote.
Okay. Yeah. So I competed in WFF as well. I mean, I knew that you had done it. I did it a few years later. My first competition was in Kansas City as well. I was bodybuilding, so that was later, a division that was added later, right? And I won that show, and I ended up getting my pro card in the WFF. You know, for me, it wasn't quite as it wasn't competitive enough as the MPC, because it was a little bit smaller. There just wasn't as many athletes, right? And I wanted to just go up against the best at all time. And so I went back and competed in the MPC, but the WFF, it's a cool organization. It's just small, and I don't think they've retained as many athletes as they did for a while. I think the top guys are legit, but again, it's a smaller group of athletes. And some of these at the local show, I won, and it was pretty easy to win, especially bodybuilding. It was small. I think there was like a dozen guys, but they were pretty novice for the most part. But so you went to Toronto, and then you won Worlds more than once, right?
Yeah, I won Worlds 3 times. But my first time there in Toronto, I took third.
Okay.
Right? And then how'd that work?
Well, you took third to who? Micah and
Sean Harley. That year.
Yeah.
The following year, there's another guy named AJ from Canada that won. I took second. And then the third year, I won. And I think that was like 2013 was and that was in Vegas at that point. They moved the World Show from Toronto to Vegas. So the first year in Vegas, they had it in Vegas. I won that in 2013. And then got riddled with knee injury, knee issues. 2014, I didn't do so well there. I think I might have got 4th-ish. I was going to sit out. But what's crazy is I brought my posing trunks anyways. And I was supposed to do a lot of interviews, just be in a suit all weekend. And for whatever reason, I didn't want to sit out. Mm-hmm. So I still prepped as if I was going to do it, but I told everybody I wasn't. And I was already doing these pre-show interviews and whatnot. And I was just going to host. That's it.
Sure.
And I made a last-minute decision to jump online, pay the entry fee, and I jumped in. And I messed around and got 4th. And that was my worst place at Worlds the whole 9 years that I've competed with them. So I kind of regret that a little bit. But I think I wanted to jump out there because that was the year that Roger Snipes from the UK was competing, and he was kind of a big name in UK on social media. So I just wanted to get out there and step out there and be next to him. But yeah, so I messed around and got 4th that year, and then I won again in 2016. That was back in Toronto, and then I won again in the UK in 2017, I think. So those are my 3 wins.
So 17 was your last year competing in the WFF?
18 was my last year, and I took second in 2018. And then 2 weeks after that, I jumped on the NPC stage for Classic Physique, won my category, won the overall, and won my national qualifier for Classic Physique. And that was my stint with the WBFF. I made that decision because I was going to retire after that. But I had so many people on social media like, "Hey man, you got to go to the IFB. You have to cross over. Go to the IFBB. I want to see you stand next to stage with some of these guys." But I wasn't looking at the men's physique category because they were just too small back then. They looked like swimmers, right? Like just muscular swimmers.
And that's board shorts, right?
Board shorts.
At that time, they were long and loose.
Yep. And the guys were just they weren't stacked. They weren't nearly as stacked. And so the progression of men's physique now, like men's physique guys, upper body wise, they're dang near bigger, as big as the classic physique bodybuilding, if not bigger.
Well, even legs too now, because they're wearing these shorter shorts. Yeah. They're tighter, so you can see the legs like through the shorts.
The top guys are. Mm-hmm. I think the category is still morphing into that. I mean, I think the big buzz this year was Arnold cracking down and making jokes about men's physique. But he's done that before. It's not his first time.
Well, the guy who won also retired from the sport because of his comment, right?
He didn't retire from the sport. He's not coming back to the Arnolds. Right?
Oh, okay.
So
I hear you.
And I get it. I get what Arnold's saying, but also if you're going to be the ambassador of this massive organization, this Arnold's Festival, you kind of got to have your arms open to everybody, right? Like that. As much as they make fun of men's physique, for the NPC, that brings in all the money, right? You can't knock that, right? The amount of money they make off of that, and it's kind of revived the sport. It's brought people back to the sport because like everybody wants to watch body. It's fun to watch bodybuilding, but not everybody is wanting to commit to that level and be that. But more people are into men's physique as far as what they want their physiques to look like and what they're willing to put into the sport. So it brought a lot more attention back towards bodybuilding, right? And so I see the catch-22 where like he's talking about the legs or whatever, which I agree you should have more balance. But now they brought in a weight cap for pro men's physique as well, and I think that'll help. And they're even though the legs aren't scored, your total overall presence and appearance, they're bringing the legs in for that, and I think that's important, right? Sure. So it's evolving. It's evolving.
Well, it's a business at the end of the day to the promoters, right? The federations. So, and they're, of course, going to be of the opinion that theirs is the organization to be with. When you transferred over, I know because when I went out of WFF and went back to the NPC, I caught a little flack. But you being pro and, well, now you're IFBB pro, you were world champ in the WFF. What did you experience when you went from all those years competing in WFF and then into the NPC? Surely there was some kind of negative attention for having that title.
Yeah, man, especially for me because I was with them for so long and I was like a household name. I was like the WBFF poster boy.
Like they still use your images.
They're still using my images to this day. And so like I thought it was going to be a lot of heat on me, but in the States, not so much. Like it was all good. Matter of fact, the judges, my first show, they had no clue who I was. Now the athletes backstage I was competing against, they knew exactly who I was, but the judges didn't. So it was good. I got a fair shake. I didn't come into any kind of riff until I started trying to compete in Canada. So I already got my national qualifier for classic physique in the NPC. So clearly I've relinquished my pro card with the WBFF. That's a given, right? So a year later, and I didn't go to nationals that year because I had a wedding. I did the WBFF Worlds. And then a couple weeks later, I did the NPC Classic Physique, got my national qualifier.
Okay.
And the head judge came back like, who is this cat? Like, you are doing nationals this year, right? You're going to do nationals? I was like, nah, I got to get married. That's more important. So 2 weeks after that, I got married. So I sat on that qualifier for a year. But the following year in 2019, I thought, let me just go ahead and add a men's physique qualifier, national qualifier, and just do both of them at nationals to see which one I fare better in. Right, because I had some IFBB coaches reach out, but hey, man, congrats. But you know, they said, don't take no offense, man, but I think you can be competitive in men's physique now. Like you don't have to wait a year or two to put on size and be relevant in a couple of years and step on stage and be a first call out, classic physique guy. You can do that like right now. And so I wasn't trying to hear that at first, but I took it with a grain of salt. I'm like, these guys know what they're talking about. They're right. Married now. I got 2 girls and I got a baby boy on the way. There might be some validity to this. So I decided to go that route. And so I picked a show in Canada because I was based out of there now. I picked a show in Edmonton, this little regional show there. And I did both classic physique and men's physique. I really was just going for the men's physique qualifier, but I just want to step out on classic anyways. So I do this show and I get there and they're like, hey man, you're with the WBFF. Hey man, I already got my national qualifier in the States, so I'm not with the WBFF. So we got in a little bit of a riff right there. They print out this form. I had to sign my life away saying I wasn't with the WBFF. So that's how I was met there at that show. So I already knew what time it was. And at that point, they had a comp prep coach that puts all his clients on that stage, right? So there's the regional politics, scratch your back, scratch my back, put all my guys on your stage. they do well, I'll keep bringing them back, and yada, 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 right? And then his guys look good, so he'll get more contest prep clients. So whatever. I ended up taking 3rd in classic physique and a 4th in men's physique. And I've never got beaten by anybody that didn't have a set of abs. And that day, I did. So fair enough. I know a lot of people talk like that, and they think they look better than what they really did. So I didn't want to talk about that on social media, right? Because, it's just not a good look.
Sore loser, right?
Right, yeah, it would be a sore loser, whatever, take your L. So I did just that, but what I did was 2 weeks later, I went to Chicago Pro, right? 2 weeks, right? Can my physique change in 2 weeks? Yeah, a little bit, but nothing crazy, nothing drastic. So I go to Chicago Pro, much bigger show in the States, win men's physique, my category and overall, and get my national qualifier 2 weeks after I just got demolished at this regional show in Edmonton, right? Fast forward 2 weeks after that, I go to nationals, masters nationals. I do like 5 different categories, win pro cards in all 5 categories. I think I broke some kind of record. I realized why people don't do that, because I was gassed, man. I was doing my damnedest to hold on to my conditioning. It was almost impossible. But luckily, I made a good impression on Tyler Mannion and all the rest of the judges that I got those 5 pro cards. So I celebrated after that. But it goes to show, like, you can't, like, to be honest with you, doing a show is like, it's not a sport. Sport is performance-based, right? And as hard as we work in the gym, once we get on stage, it's a male pageant. They pick and select who they want, right? It's their opinions, these judges' opinions. You change the panel, you change the score around, right? Yeah. So for every person who thinks that someone wins, there's going to be the equal amount of people that think that he should have lost, and somebody else should have won. So that's not performance based. So you can't get your feelings involved in that, right? You got to pull back a little bit and understand that all the hard work is done in the gym, but once you show up on stage, like, it's not in your control anymore at all. So if you can't handle that, you probably shouldn't get on stage, right? But after that point, though, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket to win a show and that just be the only goal, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be disappointed, right?
So you're saying do more than just one show, because there's some variables there that could change from show to show.
Exactly. So yeah, don't get butt hurt and then talk trash and then not do another. Do other shows. Do other shows so that way you can get a better judgment of how your physique really looks. Because if I would have just did that one show and got 4th and 3rd, right, and then went off that I wouldn't have been very happy with that. But I did other shows, and you saw that one show was kind of an outlier, right?
Yeah.
And so I use that and talk about that on social media, so that way people have a more positive way to react to these shows, right? If you're not happy,
you went from 4th at a Canada show to
a regional show in Canada.
Okay, yeah. And then ultimately won your national, and then
a month later. Yeah, got my qualifier 2 weeks after that. Won everything there, and then 2 weeks after that, won my pro card.
Yeah,
right? With the same physique. This is one season, right? And I did another show maybe a couple weeks after that as a pro, and I did my pro opener in San Antonio, and took 7th in my first pro show out of like 45 guys.
So you went from a Canadian NPC show getting 4th to fast forward 6 or so weeks later, and you're taking 7th as a professional.
Right.
Yeah, that shows you there's something's not equivalent across the board.
100%. So that's the message. You know what I mean? And like, to take it even further, Canada isn't like the States. Canada, it's a big country, but population-wise, it's the size of California.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, like, even a big show there, they're all like regional shows, and it's super like, it's like a good old boy network, right? So that's what you have to understand. But yeah, and it happened to me again when I competed as a pro in Vancouver, right? Years later, right? That was 3 years ago. I did the Vancouver Pro Show. And I show up there, and I just feel like I just got this bullseye on my back, because I came from Paul Dillette's organization. He's also from Canada as well,
right?
And they just don't know what to do with me. So I show up there, I get first call outs. They send the first call outs guy back. They send him back to the line. They keep me out there. They bring the second call outs up. Right, pose. send them back, keep me out there. They bring the third call out. Scott, I've never been done like this. And I've been in this for like 15 years. I've never seen this ever done before, and I'm experiencing it. And the whole time I'm like, bro, they're gassing me out. They're gassing me out. I'm not getting the break. And then they send everybody back. And then after all that, after getting first call outs and doing the two other call outs with all three call outs, they decided to just put me second to last. Which is wild. So I heard some hisses in the crowd or whatever. And then I got some comments saying I was too big. I looked too big standing next to these guys. But odd thing was, I was sitting at about 205, between 205 and 207. Right? And the following season, they came out with the weight caps. And my weight cap for my height is 209. So whatever physique they think I'm too big at, I'm allowed to put on 3 to 4 more pounds of lean tissue.
That's wild. They kept you for all call outs. So you see that very rarely. Like they'll have one or two guys that they want to compare first and second call out to, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you're in first call out, there's no way you're not top 10. Here historically.
Yeah. And the thing was, I don't even think there was only like 11 or 12 guys. So like if I'm first call out, they're comparing me to third call outs. And then after all that, second to last. So, again, I'm not one to crown social media because it just looks awful. But what I can do, and what I would recommend everybody else do, is make sure you get those stage photos and videos, right? Because I'm not too, my ego didn't really care about, okay, you got second to last, maybe a little bit, but I have a business to protect also. Right, that's my livelihood's on the line. You can give me second to last. Let me show my photos, right, and what I look like in the videos, and everyone else can make their own judgment call on what's what, right? And then it just raises some questions like, why did this guy get ninth and this guy got third place and this guy got first? And that's all I want. I just want a fair shake, right? And like again, I have a business tied to what I do as well. And so I'm protecting my livelihood. So, but I recommend everyone, even if you can be upset or not happy with the judging. I believe everyone's feelings should be validated, but you want something objective to go off of. Grab those stage shots, grab those professional videos, so you have something objective to go off of. And then you can compare yourself to what you look like your last show, last year, the year before that, so you have some kind of progression to show for, right? And then you can then assess and see what you need to work on, right? Without having to go to the judges and ask for feedback, right? Because a lot of times they just don't know what to say, and they're going to tell you something, right? And they don't want to upset you. So I suggest you use that third eye and get real keen on looking at yourself and being really objective to be able to judge yourself and say what you need to work on. So grab those stage shots and grab those videos.
So I'm guessing you're not going to compete in Canada.
I will not compete in Canada ever again. What's crazy is I have to keep telling myself, because I'm like, oh, maybe I should go to Toronto. Nah, man, I'm not doing a 3 strikes you're out. I've done it twice. And oddly enough, those are the 2 shows that I've done the absolute worst in my whole entire career, is the Edmonton show and the Vancouver Pro show. Everywhere else, I seem to get a lot more love. So I don't know. Maybe it's my lineage to the WBFF. Maybe they just don't like my physique. I don't know what it is, but I just know that I don't need to go taste that again.
Sure. And so right now you're in prep. You're what, 8 or 9 weeks out, something like that.
I'm kind of not even in prep. I'm not in prep, but I'm going to start prep.
Okay.
Right. I'm going to start.
I mean, you always keep within striking distance. That's the key.
Yep.
You don't get too heavy in the off season. That way you're not just killing yourself to make weight.
100%, man. Like, I kind of diet all year. And when I say diet, like, I'm not counting macros to a T like I'm in contest prep, but I don't eat like a douchebag either. Like, I'm whole foods all the way. I just recently, back in December, I decided to cut out sugars, right? Added sugars. And so, I'll have organic honey, agave, maple syrup, cane sugar, those kind of things. But that added sugar, the man-made sugars, nada.
No,
my wife will make some. She'll
either,
make some ice cream with organic honey, stuff like that. We'll get treats from this community market in Calgary, and we'll get treats for Courage that have like cane sugar in it.
Courage is your son, by the way.
That's my little boy, yeah. And so, like, we've even weaned him off the sugars. And you see a difference in his personality, too. It's awesome. But so just eating like that, eating whole foods. I'm also more animal-based as well. I kind of switched my diet. That's why I'm eating more steaks, red meat, tons of eggs, and all grass-fed, grass-finished. My wife makes her own butter now, which is dope, grass-fed, grass-finished. Raw milk, that's incorporated into my diet now. And then tons of fruit. I've cut out veggies completely. And with that animal-based, it's kind of like a carnivore diet plus fruit. And when I add the fruits in, it's alkaline, helps balance out the acidity with the meat, but I'm also hitting all my micronutrients as well. I'm not missing anything by not eating vegetables. And by eating that way, I stay lean. I'm already a lean guy, but I stay lean.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting. I mean, AJ is half black, half Japanese. So probably won the lottery on genetics for sure. But lifestyle, if you eat like an asshole, you're not going to look like you look, right? So I get it. You mentioned raw milk. I'm not trying to blow up your spot, but I know raw milk is outlawed in Canada.
It
right?
is, man.
So you got a guy.
You have to have a guy, and in order to get that, you have to know somebody that knows somebody, and
that's so crazy.
It's crazy. It's like a trap house. You go to the house and you pull up, and there's other cars pulling up for milk, and like it's like raw milk, cheese. He's making raw cheese, cream. What else? Even cow colostrum. Crazy. It's a lot of nutrients. So colostrum is like what comes out before the milk comes out.
Okay, dude.
Right? And there's so much nutrients in it. Like it took me a while to kind of get to that point to like put a little bit in my protein shake, but man, there's so much nutrients in it. But anyways, so raw milk, man, there's so many cool properties to raw milk. Like it has all the vitamins and minerals in it still. What else? Not just the vitamins and minerals, but what else?
Enzymes,
enzymes, right?
Yeah.
And so, like one of the things it has in raw milk, there's something in raw milk that helps break down the lactose, which allows people who are lactose intolerant to be able to handle drinking that milk a lot better.
Whereas pasteurized does not.
Right, and the pasteurizing process it's applying heat to it, so you cook out a lot of the vitamins and minerals and everything out of the milk. Right, so that's why people have a higher lactose issue. I haven't drank milk since coming out of high school.
Yeah,
right. And now I can have a cup or two of milk, and I'll mix it with some vegan protein powder or whatever, and add that into my regimen as well.
The thing about you too is, I mean, we've been training every day since Thursday. So after today, we're gonna train after this, but it's been like 4 or 5 training sessions in a row, and I mean, I'll hook you up with pre-workout and intra-workout, and you're a super responder. Like you respond well to pretty much everything. Not everybody's that way. So I think your genetics is aligned well with what you're doing. But that being said, there's a lot of different tactics that we can implement to people that don't have the best genetics. You can still make drastic improvement. Not everybody's going to be a world champion or a pro IFBB pro. You can take your physique to another level, your health to another level, right?
Absolutely.
I mentioned you're half Japanese. You're going to compete in Japan, right? Is that this year or next year?
That's the goal. So nothing's absolute. I talk like it is.
Sure, I hear you.
I'm a firm believer that you have to talk like affirmations, man. If you don't see it happening, then you got no business doing it.
Yeah.
So I have to qualify first before I just show up in Japan. So I got to qualify for Masters Olympia. So I got to get out there.
That's what it is. It's Masters Olympia in Japan.
I got to get out there once and win a show.
And what's Masters?
Masters is 40 plus.
40 plus. And Olympia is the top tier, the World Series of your...
It's like the Super Bowl of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Right? That's what every NPC, amateur, or IFBB pro aspires to get to, is that, the top stage.
Yeah.
Right?
So we talked a little about like the raw milk and things of that nature, but from when you started, you said yourself that you just showed up with trunks. You didn't have food prep. You ate chicken and green beans 6 meals a day. What has changed in regards to from that point when you first started to where you are now, from how you train differently, because you're also a personal trainer. So, of course, you're going to evolve in that realm. From training to supplementation to recovery, where do you think how have you evolved in that regard?
Trial and error, man, because I've always been my own coach. And that's even like a lot of times coaches have coaches when they get on stage. And I get why, because when you have your own emotion and your own head is in it, you play a lot of games with yourself and you validate yourself here and you doubt yourself there. You start messing with your diet and messing with your training protocol, right? But when you're able to look at someone else's objectively, it's a lot easier to say, hey man, keep your head in the game, follow the program, right? So that's why coaches get coaches. But my personality won't allow that, because like I have to have total control over it, right? And at the end of the day, if I don't do good, it's on me. I can't blame nobody else.
Sure.
But I feel like if I had a coach and I didn't do good, I feel like I'd be blaming the coach. So I took the longer path like a knucklehead, but I also learned a lot taking that longer path, right? A lot of trial and error, figuring things out for myself, a lot of research here, research there, talking to other competitors, other coaches, and kind of piecing together what works for me. And then, working around my injuries that I've acquired along the way as well, on top of growing older in the sport. I don't know, like, who else is still doing this, like, for 13, 15 plus years.
Right, because you're 49, right?
Right,
I'm about to be.
I'm about to be 49 in April. And, like, all the folks that I started with, they're not doing this no more. Like,
right.
They might be coaching. Some might still be coaching, but they're not getting on stage.
And when
no
I
more.
talk to people about you, most of them know who you are, but if they don't, I tell them from here down, you're 20 years old. The only thing that would make you think that you're 35 or over is your white beard, which is dope. So I say keep that for sure.
For sure.
It works out well because, you're working with Prime Recovery and Wellness now in my clinic. We're teaming up there. And now that makes it look, they see your physique and they're like, man, that's unobtainable. Then they see, hey, that guy's obviously older, so maybe I can't look exactly like that, but there's room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty sick. How I feel like you're better now than you were before.
Better can be, it depends on how you define better. In some cases, I'm not as strong.
Okay.
In certain presses or certain exercises. In other exercises, I'm stronger and my muscle endurance is way better. I'm also able to maintain my physique a lot easier, which I wasn't expecting that. If you'd have told me at like 34 when I started, like I thought it was going to be harder at 49 to maintain a physique. Now I have done zero cardio up until this point, and I feel like I look like I'm like 6 weeks out, 5 weeks out type of deal. Zero cardio, right? And I recall the most cardio I've ever done was an hour in the morning, an hour at night. That's stupid.
I think it comes down to body type too, though, right? Because I'm the same way. There was a lot of shows when I competed. I've competed like 12 times, and I never did cardio unless I was doing it for my own mental wellness, because it gets you out of the house. You can go beat the streets for a couple hours. But I didn't necessarily do it because I needed to get leaner and conditioned, because that would just happen. So I guess people are listening. You got to kind of know your body. Some guys are going to be able to put on size and get massive quicker, whereas other guys are going to they fight to put on that size. You got to eat heavy. Like my buddy Brett Wilkin, he said, if I don't eat, I can't maintain this weight, right? Yeah. And he's a big guy. So I think identifying your body type is important. Don't just do exactly what you do unless you have the same genetics, unless you're high metabolism you always have. So I think that's for people listening. Identify the type of physique you have and then work for your strengths, right? And there's ways to figure that out. One, you can kind of tell by knowing yourself your entire life. But two, you just did the DNA test with us at Prime. That'll tell you what meals are going to work best for you. For me, it's Mediterranean diet. Like, I need more protein and more fats, whereas in the past it was protein, carbs, just smash it. And like that works to a degree, but for my physique, that's what works best for me. And then it'll tell you like your training style. Should you train like a collegiate athlete who runs track, or should you train like a strength training athlete? For me, my body, my DNA structure honors resistance training. So I think it's really important if you want to become next level, if you want to pursue it, whether that's just, you're a weekend warrior, if you have stage aspirations, understand what you're working with first and foremost. So, you do regular blood work. Now you've done the DNA test. Those two things tell you where you're deficient, what things you need to bring up, and then how to approach supplementation that's going to work for you. Because with these DNA tests, it lets you know, like when I did it, I didn't know that I was prone to deficiency in choline and selenium. I never even knew what selenium was. But so I started adding this stuff in, and they'll tell you, like I have sufficient vitamin B12. A lot of guys take a lot of vitamin B, whichever vitamin B that is, but I don't need extra of that. But it'll tell you, so if you're deficient in one area, even if your blood work is saying like, hey, you're in the normal range, I think a lot of us know normal ranges is just something, take it with a grain of salt. I know that if I'm a hypermetabolizer of the supplement, even if it's in the normal range of my blood work, I need to do more. So at least get it to the top of that normal. So arming yourself with knowledge is something that I've done, something you're doing now. You know, you're running a lot of peptides with Prime now. It's pretty early on. You know, we're working for you for this next show, but you can share a little bit of experience with that. But what are your expectations for the peptides? And the peptides you're taking are NAD, which, you know, has a lot of benefits. For me, it's more cognitive function, but it's like cell repair in the mitochondria. It helps preserve your telomere length. And then you're also doing sermorelin, which is like an HGH precursor, makes your body produce more HGH. And then what else do we have you on? IGF-1 or IGF-3? Yep. Yeah, so what are your expectations for that going into the show? And what do you think that would have done to your past physique if you would have been able to incorporate some of the knowledge you have now, not just peptides, but everything you've gained over time? Because like you said, you're kind of self-taught. So was I. And sometimes I think back, it's like, God, you don't know what you don't know. But if I could start over, I would have done several things differently, right?
100%.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. What are your expectations for it, and like, where do you think you could have evolved a little further in the past with the knowledge you have now?
So the analogy is, it's like a pay to play, right? Like you skip the line when you get a DNA to blood work and a DNA test.
Good way to put it.
And if you don't use those resources, you got to get to the back of the line and wait. Right. And that's what I've been doing luckily I've had some success with that, but that's basically it. Like, I'm so excited to get the results back from that DNA test. Now I know it takes about like 3 weeks or so it's going to be well into my contest prep, but still better late than never, because I plan on qualifying, and then I'll have that information to use to prep for Olympia, Masters Olympia. Right. And so I'm super excited to get that information, because then now it could be more like a sniper with my training, with my dieting, with my supplementation. Because right now, like, I'm flying blind, right? Like, and I know a little bit about a little bit, so like I can cover my bases. But like, if I can be more precise with how I train, more precise with what I'm eating, and more precise with my supplementation, I should be able to get better results, or at least expedite the results. Right. Like, and I'm 49. I'm on borrowed time. I feel like I got a death grip, a kung fu grip on that youth. But at some point, it's going to start going south. I don't know when, so I'm going to hold on to it as long as I can, and that's it. I'm like, I'm going to rock this as long as I can, and I think this is going to help add longevity to it as well. You know, a lot of pros are cycling a lot of gear, right? Right. And that's the issue when I'm seeing guys in their late teens, early 20s start cycling. I'm like, oh my God. Right? Like, you haven't even maxed out your natural test levels yet, and you're already like pumping.
Yeah, I mean, they get a gym membership, and then they go see the guy on the corner about a vial of Deca.
Right?
Trend.
No blood work, no just that's really flying blind. Like, at least get the blood work done, so you know what you're dealing with, because it's not for everybody, right? If you have I don't know, like, history of cancer in your family or whatever, colon cancer, there's a lot of things that should deter you away from it if you have these precursors. So get the work done first, do it in a safe manner, and then ask yourself, do you want to have a family later on in life? Do you want to have kids? All these questions you should be asking before you go chasing this plastic trophy or this metal trophy or whatever. Yeah. Right. I was able to pop out a baby at 40, how old am I, 43, 44, 45. Right. And so there's you got to have, if you want longevity in the sport, you got to do it in a smart way. And I believe adding the DNA test onto the blood work and using peptides in a safe manner is way better than blasting a lot of gear. And I want to showcase that. I want to showcase that these peptides work, right? And if I can do this and I showcase this at 49, then it may inspire other bodybuilders to maybe come down on their gear usage and start incorporating peptides and then doing it in a safer manner. So
100%.
So I'm an open book. I'm going to be sharing this stuff on my social media so people follow along and they see the benefits of it, right? Because the peptides are this is the new hot thing. Like, Joe Rogan's raving about NAD, right? So like to be able to reverse your biological age or slow it down is crucial for guys that are in their late 30s all the way to up to 60s. Like, we don't want to sit on the sidelines. We still want to get in the mix and do some stuff, right? So I want energy. I want to recover faster. I want better sleep. All those things are phenomenal, are great things, right? That's what we all want and all need, whether we're performing at work or performing in the gym. You don't want to have brain fog, right? That's another thing that NAD is good on. If you have any kind of cognitive issues or right, it helps you there too. So it's an awesome peptide that kind of covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited. I just started a few days ago. So I think by week 2, like, I'm pretty hyper responsive. So if I change my diet or do something, I can tell within 2 weeks. Usually by the end of week 2, I know if I have to change something, it's not working or whatever. So typically it's a 2-week mark for me. So I'm super excited. And to get that DNA test back, man, like, I'm patient, but I'm impatient. I want to know, right? I want to know now because like I'm ramping up my training. Right. And I also want to know because I'm 49. Like I come from a background where you put in the work, put in the reps, like not just high volume and heavy, right, for the volume that you're pushing. And it's mentally, physically taxing and draining. And I know that most guys that are approaching 50 will have to change that style, right? They can't keep training the same way and doing that because my previous preps, I would train 6 and 7 days. I've gone 20 some days in a row before I took an off day before. And I'm not saying that, and I won't put none of my clients through that ever. But again, because I'm coaching myself and I'm in my own head, like, I'll step on the gas pedal and I have no coach to tell me to govern, hey man, you need to take an off day. I'm like, F that noise. It's gas. I feel good. I'm going. And that might not have been the smartest thing to do. Maybe taking an off day would have helped me more. But I'm just that type of guy. But now that I'm approaching 50, like, it might be wise to start incorporating these other things, other training tactics to help see if I can maintain or build my physique and do it in a smarter, more efficient way, and salvage my energy, my joints, my recovery, right? So that's the goal with what I'm doing now. I'm just trying to be smarter about it, and that's something these gray hairs have allowed me to do, is just assess now, right? And look for some solutions, right? And then utilize that instead of just flying in blind, going in there with a hammer and just swinging at everything. Like, now I want to be a sniper. Like, you took me to the gun range yesterday, right? I want to be able to hit my target, right, and select it and hit it instead of just like spraying everything. So that's the goal this year, is to get that qualifier. Hopefully the first time out. If I got to step out twice, whatever. But I have a window to do this in because Masters Olympia is in August. I believe it's mid-August, like the second week of August or whatever, right? And time's kind of rolling by. Like, but my physique is in a place now. I'm at a really good starting point. Well, I don't need a 12-week prep. I can do it in 2 months. I can do it inside 2 months. So inside 8 weeks, I can be nails.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is just not get out of shape.
100%. Right? Yeah, and for men's physique, I don't think you never have to. Bodybuilding's a little bit different. Maybe you gotta come out and put on a little bit of body fat as your in your bulking season. But I believe if you're, and plus we have weight caps now, so if I'm already hovering at the top of my weight cap, I don't have to really grow that much, and I can just fine tune and tweak my body, maybe change a body part here, change a body part there. But I don't have to just put on mass everywhere, right? Yeah. So there's no reason for me to get stupid out of shape, right?
Yeah, and you and I share a similar supplementation protocol. I mean, we're both on TRT, and I run in the same peptides you are. And, for guys in general, as you know, I'm in my 40s, we're both in our 40s. This is a way to control that decline. You have a say in when your body starts to age hard. Because, around 33 to 35, you lose about 2% of your natural testosterone production every year until you die. So, you can eat better, you can work out, and that'll move the needle a little bit. But if you're truly deficient, it's not going to make a huge impact. So same thing for women. Men and women, if you optimize your health, optimize your hormones, you can dictate what the aging process is going to be like down the road to a degree. Women can control menopause. Pre- and postmenopausal women can, utilize these therapies to control how bad it is and when that onset occurs. And so if anything, that it allows you to control the decline from just a general perspective. But then from guys competing, you mentioned, bodybuilding especially has gotten known for a large amount of deaths, a lot of young guys dying. And I think peptides, and I think you agree, there's something that they can be incorporated in place of other anabolics. Testosterone kind of gets a bad rap because anabolics is a broad term. That can be your performance-enhancing drug like Trembling that is just terrible for you, all the way to a corticosteroid inhaler. That's a steroid, right? But testosterone is something that your body produces naturally, and you're just supplementing that. If you were low on vitamin C, you take a vitamin C supplement. Testosterone is no different, and it's kind of got bastardized over the years. I think people are coming around like, hey, if I'm deficient, I don't have to feel drawn down all the time. I don't have to have brain fog. I don't have to have no libido. I can supplement that and get back to where I need to be or how I feel my body wants to be normally, or I can even optimize that. When I say optimize, I'm not talking about super physiological doses off the charts. I'm talking about the top of normal, to where you're getting all the benefits and none, if any, side effects. And if you do, they're easily mitigated for the most part. So I'm with you. I'm excited. I think peptides are great. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Again, peptides is a really broad term, though. So a peptide is, I believe it's a 50 chain or less amino acid. So we eat a lot of peptides in our food, but you're just not getting the concentration that we are within. Most of what we're going to do is subcutaneous injections, but some peptides like BPC 157 that can be orally taken and still fairly effective. So there, from my experience, and I competed for 15 years. I've been on testosterone for 20. It's a nice alternative, a healthier alternative, and not going to break your body down. It's not going to suppress you. You know what I mean? But like I said, it's a broad term. Technically, insulin's a peptide. So you can't just say peptides are good or peptides are bad. I'm sure that in the hundreds and hundreds of peptides, there's some that aren't great. But the healing peptides, the recovery peptides, the cognitive function peptides, those, in my experience that I've been using for the past 2 years, it's amazing. Now, it's not a magic bullet. It's not going to be a drastic overnight you wake up with a six-pack, but the sermorelin for me, so your body's going to produce more HGH on its own rather than taking a shot of human growth hormone. If you take human growth hormone, exogenous HGH, your body's going to send a signal saying, we're getting this, just shut it off. We don't need to produce, right? But when you're taking sermorelin, your body triggers that to where your body produces more of it. And so there's not going to be suppression. There's actually going to be, it's going to grow that. It's going to make it have a higher impact. So the fact is there are alternatives to some of this liver toxic things that these guys take. I've taken things over the years too that now looking back I wouldn't have. But it's a healthier way to get a similar result. It might take a little bit longer, but you're not going to pay the ultimate price for it in some of these situations. So that's something I'm excited to see your results too, because like I said, you're like a hyper responder. So it'll be good. And it really honors since you're already lean, you're going to see those results faster. Yeah.
And on that note about HGH, it's also more cost effective, not just a healthier option, but a more cost-effective option as well.
Yeah, I mean, sermorelin's like $150, something like that, right, for a 2-month supply.
If you're getting legitimate HGH, not the stuff that's being cooked in someone's house, it's pricey.
Yeah, I mean, depends on what you're getting, right, generic or like humotropin. Depends on what you get, but you're probably looking for a month supply of $500 to $1,000, right? And in addition to that, you're possessing something that's illegal. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get a prescription for GH very often. Our clinic doesn't prescribe it. Basically, at Prime, it's everything that's naturally occurring in the body. It's some clinics will, but truly to get prescribed HGH, you need to have muscle wasting syndrome, like something due to AIDS disease, or be a pubescent boy who is having issues with growing. So there's some great alternatives to it. I think there's going to be more and more stuff coming out on that, but I'm excited for that for you. And it'll be neat. It'll be cool to see how it affects this prep, because you're already looking great. See what you look like in 8 or 9 weeks. It's going to be crazy.
I can't wait. I think the only part in my whole regimen that's compromised is my sleep. Right.
Well, the sermorelin will help that.
That's what I'm excited about. Right. Yeah. And I try to control it, but it's hard.
Yeah.
When you run a business, I'm a father of a family of 5, I'm a husband, competing. It's a lot going on, right? To balance family life, work life, real life, comp prep life, and my mind doesn't shut off. So at nighttime, it's hard for me to go to sleep. And I have a 5-year-old boy that still wakes up in the middle of the night, bangs on our door like the police. And I gotta answer it, pick him up, bring him in bed with us, man. It's a lot of restless nights. A lot of me not getting to bed in time, on not getting to bed at a good hour, and then also waking up multiple times a night. And here I am also approaching 50, so I don't sleep all the way through the night. I'm going to go pee at least 3 times a night, and I noticed that with my age as well. Like, I don't really notice my age much, but like things like that I notice. I used to sleep through the night, and I have to get up to go to the bathroom. Now I'm like, man, I just woke up 2 hours ago, and I got to go pee again. Yeah. It's crazy. So like my sleep is super disruptive. And I've been rocking like that for a while, getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep and still pushing myself in the gym. And I just don't see a lot of guys in their 40s able to do that.
Very few people can actually operate on less than 7 or 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And the DNA test tells you your sleep window and what your requirements are. It actually tells you when you need to go to bed and when you should get up. So that changed my protocol for sure, because I was like, I need to be up at 5 a.m. every day. And I was like, no, actually, my sleep window, I can sleep till 6, and I'm going to bed at 10. Yeah. So it works. So it's just more knowledge. And, you're a coach, you're a trainer. In the past, I've worked with coaches, I've self-coached. But before I had some of this available to me, I would almost have to work with a guy for at least a couple shows or at least a couple seasons to learn their body, right? Yeah. So for the coaches out there, don't be intimidated by the services that you have available to you, like through Prime. But that's something where you guys can get the cliff notes on how this person's going to react. Get the blood work done, get the DNA test, and that's going to put, like you said, you're going to jump in front of the line.
It's like a cheat code.
It really is.
It's a cheat code is what it is. And it adds value to your coaching service to be able to get that 100%. Information, to be able to be linked up with a wellness clinic like that, and to have those other services offered. And for those clients that are serious about optimizing their health and optimizing their fitness and going that route, and like cutting past the fluff and getting the results, and then basing your workout plan and your meal plan based on the results that you get, is clutch, man.
Yeah.
Clutch.
Yeah, for sure. And, we've talked about your journey. We talked about your supplementation, stuff like that. That's awesome. I think that's what a lot of our followers want to listen to. But something else I want to talk to you about is your faith and your faith journey. It's something that's super important to me. I'm a believer. I know you are too. And you've had some transitions in your life from early on. You, like me, we kind of did our own thing. We came back to Christ. But tell us a little bit about your faith journey and how that's kind of shifted your mindset. That's how has it affected how you parent, how you live your life in general?
Yeah. Always been a believer, but not devout, right?
Yeah.
Very Western culture. I believe in God. God's got my back, and I don't have to do a dang thing. I could just keep living my life and doing what I want to do and live life for me, very selfishly. And I did that for a long, long time, all the way up until he was with me this whole time, right? But it wasn't until about 2022 I've experienced some really, really high highs. And I'll share that with you guys, and I'm not bragging by any means, because as soon as it came, it was gone, right? And I hit some really low lows. So there's a lesson in this, and it's a sucky story to tell. I tell all my sucky story. I tell the DUI story. That's not a fun story to tell, but I say it because when people see you on social media, they don't think that this guy's living a perfect life. Nah, man, I've hit some rough patches, and by the grace of God, He's kept me on this path. But so in 2022, at that point, my online business, from 2020 to 2022, my business just took off, probably because of the pandemic. Like, all the Commonwealth countries were in lockdowns for 2 years. 2 years is crazy. But people are hurting, they're suffering, right? And I had a service that was helping them. I was creating in-home workouts and helping them with their meal plans, and guiding everybody online. And we have these Zoom calls, these one-on-one check-ins, group calls, and men need that. They need something.
Yeah.
Because we don't, like, where do men go to get help? Like, besides you going paying $150 to $200 an hour to go talk to a therapist. Like, there is no groups for men. Like, they're there for children, they're there for women, but men, man, if you're hurting, you're just kind of on your own. You just got to suck it up, buttercup. So, like, I believe a lot of guys came to me not only just for getting in shape, but to have some kind of camaraderie and some kind of guidance as well. So so my online coaching business took off from 2020 to 2022. I was seeing 50K months, 60K months, saw 3 70K months in a row before everything kind of went the other way. And that's when I saw things happening in the world that I didn't believe in. And I felt like because I work from home, I'm able to do more research than the person that's clocking in 40, 50 hours a week with their head down. My head's up. I'm looking around. And as passionate as I was about track and field when I qualified for Olympic trials, as passionate as I am for bodybuilding and collecting 3 world titles, now being an IFBB pro, I'm passionate about my health, my family's safety, right? I'm passionate about my family and keeping them safe. So I'm going to do my due diligence. And I know I'm average as heck any other time, but when I'm passionate, I rise to the top, and I'm one of the best in the world at what I do when I'm passionate. And so I felt obligated to open my mouth and speak out when a lot of other influencers, they capitalize on it. I was out there trying to show people what time it was, what this world was going through. And I was very, very verbal about the COVID-19 jabs. I was verbal about the draconian lockdowns, all that. And that's something that big tech and big pharma didn't like too much. And so I was at 1 million followers right before 2020. And then since 2020 till now, I've lost 200,000 followers. And if you know anything about social media and how it works, especially Instagram, an account like that, you don't have people unfollowing you as fast as people are following you, right? And the buildup was crazy. The engagement was phenomenal. I had appointment setters in my DMs. They couldn't get down to the bottom of my inbox. But once I started talking that way and trying to wake people up and utilizing my platform to speak out against some things I didn't believe in, things started turning for the worse. And they hosed my engagement down to 0.3%. That's under 0.5%. And that's when I quickly realized my business wasn't my business. It was tied to social media, and they own my business.
Why do you think that speaking on your faith and stuff like that is so like shied away from guys like yourself, like in the fitness community? Because they're to a point, it's almost false worship. The body's a temple, right? Like the Bible says so. However, it can be, if it becomes your idol, becomes your false god, then it's bad. You can take anything and overdo it. Yeah. So why do you think that in the fitness community people just shy away from it? You think they're just worried that even if they are believers, people are gonna be turned off by it? Or because you lean into it, you lead with your faith, and that's one thing I really respect about you. Why do you think the industry is the way it is?
It's not just the industry; it's society. They
True,
make
fair.
it taboo to talk about politics and religion, right? And then we kind of adopt that over time.
Yeah.
But for me, what made me vocal about it is what happened to me. So like I said, I saw those high highs and those, and then all of a sudden I started seeing low lows where they wiped out my business completely. I was crying, woe is me, right? Wondering why this was happening to me, getting depressed, all that stuff. And my feelings are validated, but to stay in that for too long was my mistake. I stayed in it for a couple of years, right? And instead of running away from Christ, I finally turned to Christ. And that was it's almost like he was like, that's what I was waiting for.
Yeah.
Right? You hard-headed knucklehead, right?
Right.
Like a dad to his son.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a firm believer that he took all that away from me, right? Because I was one-dimensional. I wasn't happy. What's crazy is I wasn't happy making 70K a month in my online business with not a whole lot of overhead. I had a team that I paid, probably 10 grand was my overhead. Come on, right? But I was in the office 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. I wasn't a father to my kids. I wasn't even a husband to my wife. I was just one thing, one-dimensional. I was a provider, and that's it. And it made me feel some type of way, so I just kept putting my foot on the gas. And I wasn't happy with 70. I wanted to see 80. I wanted to see 100K months, and that's all from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, that's all my whole head was wrapped around is how do I get there, right? I'm the man, I'm the provider. I was worshiping myself. I was worshiping my money. I was worshiping my business, pat myself on the back. And just like Babylon, we know what happened to Babylon if you know anything about the scripture. They built altars for themselves. Not for God. They built altars for themselves to show how big and bad they were. What happened to Babylon? God wiped them out. And I believe he took everything from me. because I wasn't ready. I wasn't walking in my faith. And if on that trajectory, I would have never have came back to Christ. I was too busy doing my thing. Life was too great and too phenomenal, and I still wasn't happy. I just wasn't happy. I was just chasing one thing. I got so one-dimensional. And in the middle of all me crying, woe is me, and feeling bad for myself, I started realizing what was important. Now I'm spending time with my kids. I'm spending time with Courage, my 5-year-old boy, more time with my wife. Family came back in, right? And I also realized what a strong wife I had at the time, because she got into digital marketing. And that year, the year that I was down and out, like, she pulled in 6 figures from digital marketing. I'm like, man, she's not just some beautiful housewife. She's a ride or die. Like, so I figured out all these different things, and here I was still crying, woe is me, and not really realizing all these amazing things that I still had going for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I woke up from that. Wife and I had a good talk about getting back into church, and it started with that, just showing up on Sundays, patting ourselves on the back. We're doing a good job. Right. And just putting him first, at least on Sundays, right, ahead of everything else. And that developed into worshiping, right? That developed into prayer. That developed into reading scripture. That developed into tithing. Then it developed into serving at my church, all these different things. And that's when I realized the word Christian is really watered down these days. Everybody's a Christian. That don't mean everybody's going to the same place. Sure. That's not what that means. There's a lot of Christians that's not going to where they think they're going to end up in.
Right, because there's action required.
And that's the argument. He died on the cross and he saved us. He saved us from our sins, for all of our sins, right? But work isn't going to get us in heaven. I understand that part. But what people need to also understand is, if you have a relationship with Christ, if you legitimately accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior, at that point, your life should transform as you're building your relationship with Christ organically. Just as my son doesn't want to disappoint me, you don't want to disappoint your father.
Right.
The same way. So you can't be the same person before you met Christ. 5, 6 years, 10 years later, be that same person with the same exact person. No, there has to be some growth and development there. Yeah. So I really don't like the word Christian anymore. Discipling is how we get there.
Yeah.
And discipling is basically a Christian that's doing all these actionable steps, not because they're afraid or they're scared or they think God's going to come down with this hammer on them. It's because of the love. They understand the love Christ has for you. That's when things start to change, right? And that's when you start doing things not as a chore, but because, like, you understand, like, for him to offer up his son, to put his life on the line, die on the cross for us, for all of us, and to understand what that means, you got to understand God's love first. And it's crazy. He loves us first before we love him. And you got to understand that love for Christ. Then you start, for me, like, me doing these little things, that's nothing. Like, that's the least I can do for him.
Sure.
Right? And so, but I came from that old school mindset. Like, he just rules with an iron fist or a hammer. He's just waiting for me to mess up and crack the whip. It's kind of how I felt. Right? And I quickly, slowly realized that that's not the case at all. He is loving. He is kind. He is all forgiving. It doesn't matter how many times you mess up, right? And even my kids, they mess up. Like, they start pissing me off. How many times I got to tell you to stop doing X, Y, Z? That's not how he acts and responds. So a lot of times we can't even understand the amount of grace he has, right? Because we're of flesh and we deal with other people of flesh. And so to understand that he is just all encompassing, all giving, all loving, it's hard to understand that. Right? But once you start to get a grasp of that, then doing these things like tithing, worshiping, reading scripture, all becomes a hell of a lot easier when you understand what he sacrificed for each and every one of us. Mm-hmm. And so it took me a few years to get to that point, right? And it started with just showing up in church, right? And every time I started, and it was out of discipline at first, right? I was doing it, even then I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I just knew I needed to get my butt back in the church. And through that
step, though.
Yeah, it was a step in the right direction. And I knew that was part of the journey, is taking these steps to get to where I am now, where I feel like I'm doing things organically now, like it should be. But I had to use discipline, because I know that's one of my special powers, is discipline throughout my life.
Sure,
and so I use discipline, just like I use discipline in the gym. I use discipline with church. And I told myself, I'm not going to go to church one day and all of a sudden be like this super Christian. Just like I didn't go to the gym one time and all these muscles just popped up out of nowhere. It was day in, day out for a long time, for months, for years, for me to get to where I am today. And the same thing, I had to apply the same type of discipline for my faith. And that's why I like faith and fitness go hand in hand together. It's a similar path. Just the path that you're taking is up here in your mind, right? Not physical. Right, so now I'm finally getting to the point where my spirituality is catching up to my physical attributes, and it's a pretty cool thing to see, because it's hard to judge that too. Like, am I getting better? Am I growing in my faith? But when your family members, the people that you live with day in, day out, behind the scenes can tell, that's when you know what's happening. Something's happening. Growth is happening. When your own family members, right? Because how you act at home is quite different than a lot of how people, it shouldn't be, but people act at home quite differently than they act in public. Yeah. And when you start to match how you act in public and you act the same way in your own home, and people can see that, that's powerful.
When the man is the head of the household. So they're going to see you, and they're going to, especially your boy and your little girls, and they're going to implement that as well. Yeah. And that's a great place to start building your faith. Not everybody was raised in the church. You know, I was raised in the church. I was baptized as a baby, but it's like,
it wasn't your choice.
No, it was like your dad likes the baseball team, so that's my favorite baseball team. As a grown man, I got baptized again when I was ready to submit, and it's changed my life. I've never seen you better. You know, you said your friends that see you. You know, your buddy John's here watching the podcast while we're shooting. We've seen it, and I think you're better than ever. And that's awesome. I think it's not an overnight thing. I think it comes with time and, being disciplined and staying in the Word and serving. But a lot of people think, I'll go get baptized and I'm good. That's great. But you got to be ready to commit. You got to take it serious. It's not something you just do. It's not a weekend event you just do for fun. That's really when you start to be held accountable. That's when the work begins, right? That's when you can't earn your way to heaven, but you can go out and you can show people through how you live your life what it means to be a God-honoring man. And then they see your success and they say, that's something I should start looking into, because that's who I would love to have something like that. I'd love to have a family like he has. And that's changed the game for you. It's changed the game for me. And I think I got to remind myself of this too, but when we're chasing success, I'm successful, so are you. We have a lot of things where we can say, gosh, look at this, is so great. But without Christ, it's nothing. And you can get so focused on the numbers, on these things you acquire and the accolades, and that becomes your idol. It becomes your God, and then you're further from God than you ever could have been before. So I think there's nothing wrong with wealth. There's nothing wrong with success. It's great. We need people to earn money so they can do good things with it, but don't ever let it become your God. And I think the sooner you realize who's really in charge, you and I both are control guys. As soon as you submit your life to him, it's not like all of a sudden you got to follow these rules that's going to make your life worse. Your life's going to be better. They're not things that hold you down. They're things to bring you up. Yeah. And so I think people, if you're on the fence, if you're curious about it, do some research. I've said it before, but I know guys that'll spend 2 hours a day researching crypto, but they'll never get into the Word. And it's like, guys, you see a monetary value here. It's nothing compared to what your faith is. It's your eternity. Think long term. And I know for me, it gives me peace of mind as well when there's things that I just don't see a way out of, and somehow the resources are there. If it's God honoring and it's something that I know I'm doing for the right reasons, even if I don't know how I'm going to get through it, I always do. He always brings the resources in one way or another. It's like with your wife, when you were down and out, she's making money, brought up the family. So while training's great, while supplementation is great, none of that stuff is anything without our faith.
True.
That's really what matters. But you can have all that other stuff too, but just make sure you know who your true father is, right?
You mentioned something a second ago about like chasing worldly things and like having money and this, that, all that's great, but there's a lot of people that are still empty from that. And I like looking back at my life, I think the success that I've acquired, they're all positive, but it wasn't until recently that I started reflecting on this, and I think I acquired it in a negative way because I was abused as a child. Like, watched my mom get beat up, I got beat up, and so like acceptance was like probably my thing, right? And I look back, why was I so successful at like track and field and bodybuilding? Like I pushed for that so hard because I wanted acceptance, right? So it's a positive outcome, but like a negative driver, really, right? Why I became, I bubbled up to the, to top 1% in track and field, top 1% in bodybuilding, and then becoming a top 1% earner in all of Canada. Like all those things are great, but something was still missing, right? Because I was chasing after worldly things. And it wasn't until I got into Christ, got back into it, got back into Scripture, filling my cup with that I truly feel like I'm at peace.
Yeah. I mean,
it took me 40 some odd years to come to that conclusion.
The strokes of the ego from the world is a thirst that's never going to be quenched.
Never. Yeah. It's just like, like when you get a new car, like you're excited, right? Like I remember when I first got my first Mercedes, I don't know, like 10 years ago, whatever. I'm like, oh man, I always looked up to people who drove Mercedes. Like we never had that. My family never had that growing up. We're like, lower middle class. So when I first got it, I was super excited about it. Like the hype to get it was like up here.
Yeah.
Once you get it, a couple of months later, like,
yeah,
it's not that big of a deal anymore, right?
Yeah, I've experienced it
right?
for sure.
And then you keep chasing that, like the next car, I'm gonna get a M3 or whatever. You keep chasing after stuff like that, and like the chase, like it's almost like the thrills in the chase. And then once you acquire it, once you get the kill, you're not interested in it no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I've realized nothing is going to be compared to actually helping somebody else take things to another level. You realize I was working on myself all the time. And then when you do step out and help other people, that's more gratifying than almost anything. Yeah. And that's definitely a God honoring way to live your life. We're going to need to wrap up here sooner than later, but if you were to give us some scripture, what scripture would you leave us with here?
It's on the side of my hat, man. Psalms 56:3. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you.
Okay.
And I think that speaks for itself.
Absolutely.
Always fall back on Christ.
Yeah.
Right? And that's something that I had to learn to do later in life. And that's why I created this hat. That's why I put it out there. And there's another scripture that said something about stay salty. Like the salt is it loses its value when it's not salty no more. Right? That salt, it's a seasoning. Right? And when it gets wet, it loses its saltiness and becomes worthless. And it's a parable or analogy for Christians as well. Like on Sundays during football season, everybody will paint their face and wear their Chiefs jersey and even put them flags on their cars. Well, Chiefs fan, but they'll hide back and cower about their Christianity, right? God can't use that. So that's what made me become more vocal and strong on my faith.
Yeah.
Right. I don't care what people say. I don't care if it's a cool thing or not. That's one thing that people are going to know about me, and I'm going to lead with that. Because if they see my life, they see something different about me, they see me shining differently, then they know where the credit goes. It's all glory to God.
Yeah.
Right. And hopefully some people can see a switch, besides from my family, who that's the most important. They see a switch in me. They can tell how much this is impacting my life. And that's how you know there's a God.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I want to be verbal and vocal about it. Because the more people that I can share this with, and this is what he wants us to do. This is part of the discipling, right? The other part is sharing your testimony, right? Now I don't have to be like an old school Mormon and go travel to some other country and be like, hey, are you a good person? That's what happened to me, man. When I was in Norway, I was running track on a junior track team in Norway, and these Americans, we just found it. We ran into each other. They're like, hey, what's going on? They went to BYU, right? And they're doing their mission trip, and they're young, so they just don't know how to approach people, right? But they just flat out came at me like this, and you want to be a good person? In my head, I'm like, screw you, I'm a good person, right? So already standoffish. Yeah. That's not how he wants us to really be, but he wants us to bring people, to introduce people to Christ. And to introduce people to Christ, you don't have to do that. All you got to do is act a certain way.
Sure.
The way you should be acting when you're God-fearing, and share your testimony. That's it.
That's the way.
That's the introduction. It's like sitting next to somebody and be like, hey, like this is my story. Take it or leave it. Because once you pass that buck, it's up to them. Like your job is done. So that's why I showcase the way I'm doing. Like I want to check off all the boxes. I want to do whatever it is that he wants me to do, and I ask every day to surrender. And surrender doesn't mean like it's not. As men, we give that like a negative connotation. Right? Because we don't want to surrender anything, right? But that's not that. It's giving up to God so you don't have to bear the burden. Yeah. Right? So like for me, I asked to surrender my desires, because it's hard to decipher a lot of times whether or not like, is this something I want to do, or or is it something God wants me to do, right? So I ask for that, for his knowledge, his wisdom, guidance, to put aside the things that I want to do and use me the way you want to, put me down the path that you want me to walk. And I'm a firm believer that my page is, so my Instagram page, it started off with bodybuilding, but it migrated into family, so fitness, family, and now faith. And I believe that this was a calling from the beginning. He knows my story, what path I'm supposed. I don't know. I'm just living my life. But I'm a firm believer that my Instagram account wasn't just for bodybuilding now. Yeah. Right? It was building me up to be able to showcase and talk about my testimony and share my faith, to use it as a platform to introduce people to Christ. Yeah. And I think that's the reason why I'm competing again this year, right? To be able to get that following, right? To get eyes on me, to be able to give all glory to God.
100%.
Which is why I think I'm going to have a very successful year this year.
I think so. Yeah, man. One of the last thing Jesus said before he ascended for the final time was make disciples of all nations. That sticks with me. If there's one thing that I think about a lot, that's that. And that's, when you're talking about sharing testimony, you don't have to be an expert in the Bible. You just need to tell them how Christ is, being a believer has affected your life. That's it. And then if they have questions and you don't know, let's find it out together, right? Yeah. So, AJ, dude, I thank you for dropping some wisdom today, between fitness, supplementation, and your faith, your journey. I appreciate it. If you want to know more about, peptides, supplementation, primerecoveryandwellness.com, we'll have that stuff in the notes of the the podcast. And then, AJ, how can they get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is on Instagram. It's just my name, at AJ Ellison. That's it.
Okay, right on. Thank you, bro.
For sure.
Pleasure. Now let's train.